When you see police cars lined up along Maplewood Lane, blue lights spinning through the morning haze, neighbors pressed up against their windows, and then you watch right there with your own eyes as the woman who's tried every which way to ruin you gets hauled out of her house in cuffs. Let me tell you, you don't forget a moment like that, not if you live to be 100. I just stood there, boots sunk in mud, hands shaking but steady, as Cheryl Grant, the self-appointed queen of our quiet little Oregon neighborhood, finally got exposed as a felon, a fraud, and it turned out a small-time dealer right in front of the same crowd she'd been leading like a parade marshal for months. People like to talk about karma, but sometimes karma's got to be shoved down the hill with both hands. You know what I mean? When the smoke finally clears, the only thing left standing is the truth, and you standing in the mess, watching it all go up in flames. I've lived out here on the edge of Lakewood since I could walk, inheriting the Carter family farm after Dad passed, thinking I'd settle into the kind of life most people call simple, maybe even boring. It's not glamorous, but it's honest cows, fields, old fences, good neighbors, a peace you can actually feel. At least that's how it used to be before the suburbs started creeping up from the highway, chewing up fields and spitting out row after row of new houses full of folks who wouldn't know a seed from a weed if it hit them in the face. For years it all worked out okay until Cheryl arrived. High heels, fake nails. Mercedes parked right in the gravel driveway, an attitude that could curdle fresh milk. Cheryl didn't just move in, she wanted to run the show. Should have known trouble was brewing the day I saw her strutting up and down the block with a clipboard gathering signatures for what she called the Maplewood Homeowners Association, her golden ticket to being boss of everything. She'd only been here a couple months, but you'd have thought she owned the dirt under her feet. Thing was, there weren't enough homeowners to form a real HOA. Too many of us were farmers, and farmland only counts as one household, no matter how many acres you've got. But Cheryl, she wasn't about to let something like numbers or the law get in the way. If you've ever met somebody who truly believes rules are for other people, you know the type. Her first campaign was all whispers and back fence gossip, telling the new families our produce was filthy, that kids growing up near a barn would turn out backward, that living next to livestock would trash their precious property values. At first I tried to laugh it off. Let folks believe what they wanted, figured sooner or later the truth would win out. But after a while it got harder to ignore. People stopped waving when they drove past, parents steered their kids to the other side of the road if they saw me coming. And suddenly there was talk of modernizing the block, which was just code for push the farmers out. Cheryl was everywhere, bake sales, block parties, little meetups. I was never invited to, spinning this story about how the Carter farm was holding Lakewood back. I'm not a fighter by nature, always preferred fixing a fence to arguing with fools, but one by one the other old-timers started selling out. Some couldn't take the cold shoulders, others just got tired of code violations and nasty letters with no names. My best friend Bill packed up his goats and left in the spring, left his porch swing rocking in the wind. By the time the 4th of July rolled around, there were only 3 of us farmers left. Cheryl wasted no time. Suddenly she had just enough homeowners to form her precious HOA. And guess who she decided needed to go next? I'll never forget the first time she knocked on my door, just got in from mucking the barn. Sweat dripping dirt streaked across my face, and there she was, hair-perfect perfume so thick I could taste it before I saw her. She didn't even bother with a howdy. Just goes, "Ethan, I'd like to discuss when you plan to sell your property." Like it was already a done deal. I told her, calm as I could manage, that I wasn't going anywhere, that this land was my whole life, but she got this look, half pity, half disgust. "You're bringing down the whole neighborhood," she sneered. "Property values are tanking because of you." I told her she was welcome to leave if farm life bothered her, and she leaned in, voice low. "You won't like what happens if I have to come back. Maybe next time I'll bring my gun." That's when I slammed the door in her face. Maybe not my proudest moment, but out here when someone talks guns, you pay attention. I didn't tell anyone about it, figured she was bluffing. But then a few days later, 2 police cruisers come crawling up my drive, Cheryl right behind them, strutting like she brought her own personal army. I met them halfway to the barn, boots caked in manure. Cheryl barely waited for a hello before telling them I was trespassing on her land, that I was a squatter, that I'd already sold her the farm and was refusing to leave. She dragged those poor cops through my barn, pointed at cows and chickens, swore they were hers, claimed I was abusing them. The officers looked at her, looked at me, then at the stack of paperwork she tried to shove in their faces, confused as you'd expect. My old Holstein Bella saved me that day, gentle as they come, but pregnant cows don't take kindly to strangers. Cheryl reached out to pet her, calling her my angel. In this syrupy voice, Bella lunged, nearly knocked her flat. Cops had to pull her back. I explained Bella was due any day and just didn't like being fussed over. The police saw enough, told Cheryl if she really owned the place, she'd need to prove it in court. But Cheryl wasn't done. That week, I got a letter summons to civil court. Cheryl was suing me for squatting with what looked like airtight paperwork contracts, sale deeds, even a signature that looked damn near like mine. My stomach dropped. For a minute, I wondered if I'd lost my mind. Maybe I really had sold the farm and forgot. I called Mark, my lawyer since high school, best hope I had. We pored over every page, night after night, looking for any hole, anything out of place. Mark finally spotted it. Those sale records matched a transaction from a different farm owned by a friend who'd moved out to Montana a month earlier. Cheryl had copied the document, swapped in my name and signature, and printed it all up like it was real. It was a hell of a forgery, I'll give her that. Day of the hearing, I showed up in my Sunday best, sweating bullets, but too angry to be scared. Cheryl was there in a bright red suit, acting like the star of her own reality show. Judge asked for proof of sale. I handed over the real deed, bank records, everything, and Mark explained how the paperwork had been doctored. Dates mismatched, transaction numbers off, signatures pasted. Judge wasn't amused, tossed Cheryl's claim, hit her with a fine for wasting everyone's time. But get this, she didn't lose her HOA seat, didn't go to jail. Just strutted out like nothing happened. I asked for a restraining order, told the judge about her threats. He agreed, banned her from coming near my place. Cheryl just laughed, waving like a pageant queen on her way out. You'd think that'd be the end, right? But some people just can't quit. I was furious watching someone get away with that much lying and harassment, and all I kept thinking was if she could try to frame me, she could do it to anybody. Then I remembered her little gun threat. See, in Oregon, gun laws aren't a joke. Owning without a license will get you in real trouble. So I made an anonymous call, told the sheriff that the president of Maplewood HOA was bragging about her gun-making threats to problem neighbors, and honestly, I was worried for the community. Left it at that. A few days later, sunrise sirens blaring down the street, unmarked cars, SWAT. Whole 9 yards, Cheryl's house surrounded. Word travels fast out here. By noon, everybody knew something big was going down. I stayed out by the barn pretending to mend a gate, but keeping an eye on the circus. When they finally brought Cheryl out, mascara-streaked hair a mess. I'll be honest, I felt nothing. Maybe a little pity, but mostly just tired. Then I heard what they found: 5 unregistered guns bags of pills and powder ledgers, with names and numbers enough to put her away for a long, long time. Neighbors were stunned. Turns out half the people Cheryl courted as friends were actually clients, buyers, users, enablers. Suddenly those block parties made sense. The HOA board, the folks who'd backed her every move, started resigning one by one. The new families who'd moved here for the upscale life packed up and left. The ones who'd believed every word she said, well, their silence was louder than any apology. I didn't celebrate. I didn't run around telling people I told you so. That's not me. That night, I walked the fence-line boots, scuffing the dirt, just taking in the quiet. I'd survived a war I never wanted and lost more than I could say good neighbors, peace of mind, trust in the people next door. But I was still here. My name still on the deed, my cows still grazing. Cheryl gone. The power she'd tried to grab twisted into something ugly. It all collapsed in one morning under the weight of her own secrets. Sometimes justice comes all at once, like thunder. Other times it's just the absence of noise. The gossip stops, the threats fade, and what's left is silence. For the first time in a long time, I stood on my land and let that silence soak in. No cheers, no handshakes, just the wind in the fields and the feeling deep down that for once the right side actually won. Or did it? Maybe all we did was swap one kind of trouble for another. You tell me, was it justice or just another round of neighborhood drama? Let me know what you think. Where's the line between standing your ground and fighting dirty? And what would you have done if you were me? I'd really like to hear it.